Hello, welcome back to PJ Maybe. Myself and Sadako24 will be talking season 10 of Red
Greetings,
Dwarf.
Smegheads. Greetings, Smegheads.
Yes, hi guys. So, let's see. What have we got?
Greetings, Smegheads. Sorry, that's me. Sorry. Okay.
Is that you echoing? I thought I was starting to go again.
Yeah. I had this stream on my browser. Only made me
Okay. That's okay then. That one we can get. That just means we're actually watching ourselves. No problem. Well. So,
yep. Feel like back to earth.
Yes. That's exactly what I felt. So, season 10. What did you think? What was your initial thoughts on it when you first saw it?
I think it was kind of like Red Dwarf had been away a long time by that point, and I think I have to say after Series 8, I stopped really thinking of myself as a fan of Red Dwarf, like because of that season. I kind of felt like I'd outgrown the show, and so Series 10, it was nice to see the show back, but it was kind of a nostalgia piece. I didn't feel like I was a fan reborn by it in the way you say that when Doctor Who came back, I felt like a fan reborn. This kind of wasn't quite that. I mean, that would take a few seasons, I think, but at this point, yeah, it was nice to have the show back. Still didn't feel quite like the old days, but it was.
Yeah.
It felt like maybe a step in the right direction than seasons before. I mean,
yeah, I quite agree with that. I think when I first saw it, I really enjoyed it, but like yourself, that there was things missing from it. But because I was a big Doctor Who fan, the classic stuff, I did find peaks and troughs in that. So I did expect the occasional peak and trough within Red Dwarf. I still loved it, but on this first watch of this one when it first came out, what, 2012?
2012, yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. There was enough in it that made me smile, made me feel the dwarf is back. However, on a rewatch, that changed. Okay. I think because I'm doing a rewatch, being a bit more critical rather than just sitting back and just enjoying, because I'm sitting back and reviewing it and looking at it, I suppose, slightly differently, I'm noticing big gaps and bits and pieces. I'm thinking, ooh.
Do you think maybe is it because you're giving it more critical review, or do you think it's because when you first saw it, Red Dwarf had been on a long hiatus, so you didn't have, like, the better seasons of the past weren't immediately in your head to compare it to? Whereas now, because we're watching them in order, you're kind of thinking, well, look, Series 5 are the best stuff, and this pales by comparison.
It did. It definitely did pale in comparison. I got the two words and just ramming them together there. But I think I was less. If you hear any shouting, screaming, dogs barking, that means my wife is watching the football in the background, and that's what you can hear if somebody scored. Just in case anybody hears in the background, she did warn me that she might shout and ball because she's a football fan. I'm not.
Wait, who's the dogs rooting for?
I think that the dogs just bark when my wife gets shouts.
Oh, okay.
So they do. They just used to her shouting at me, so they bark at me usually. But she's shouting at TV, so they'll be barking at the telly.
Okay.
But being Yorkies, they'll probably be rooting for England. But I'll find out later, and I'll bar them from the house later on. But I don't really care who wins. Truthfully, I don't care who wins, who loses. When it comes to sports, none of them bother me. So, hence the reason why I get right into sci-fi.
Yeah,
my family were all watching football, and I'd be sitting in the room on a wee portable watching Space 1999, Battlestar Galactica, or something, anything rather than sports. I'm happy with that, mind you, because after a football match is done, unless obviously it's England 1966, it's usually forgotten by most people, whereas classic sci-fi is remembered by a lot.
Yeah.
So I saw Cam saying that being from the States, he's only seen a few of the older episodes here and there. He thought it was great. It's the earlier episodes, Cam, seasons 1 to 5, definitely, if you can get a hold of them, they're the best ones. 6, 7, and 8 are a bit slower. 9, is on first watching, I thought it was bad. On second watching, with a more adult head on, I thought it was a lot better, based on the third episode of it. But season 10, I found it the opposite. I loved it initially when it was first on, and I started going down the way. But
by the way, hi Wendology and Darren in the chat. Oh
yes, yep. Hi Wendology, Darren, and Cam. And Cam, thanks for joining us. And if you do like Red Dwarf, remember we've got 9 seasons of reviews previously.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a watch. Give them a thumbs up.
We've got more.
Comment in.
We've got 3 more streams to do after this as well.
2, 3, and we've got 11, 12, and then we're going to do get everybody wants to come in and do a final panel for the Promised Land. So 3 more weeks of this. Yay! Yeah. And then we'll go and the 2 of us will do the books.
Cool. Excellent.
Definitely. I've just finished actually I finished Affinity. I finished Better Than Life. I'm on backwards just now.
Oh, you finished? You finished Better Than Life quite quick.
Yes, basically I was working. As I said, I'd been busy, so I've been driving it up and down over the last week, up and down to work. So because I'm in my car a lot, I'll listen to a lot more of it. So literally it flew through. So I was quite surprised that I managed to get that one, and I've started backwards. I'm going to get that finished this weekend because I'm working and I'm out and about this weekend because I've taken time off my work because I've got things to do. The Man Cave's getting a revitalise. So apart from the streaming Saturday, I am going to be Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be tidying it up a bit. Sunday, I'm going to completely get everything off the shelves, get all dusted and get them all back on the shelves on Monday. So while I'm doing that, my machine will be switched off, so I'll probably have my Alexa play my books. So I'll be listening to them.
Hello, Geek Inside. Hello. Welcome.
Hi, Geek Inside. Thanks for joining us. So, episode 1, Trojan. What was your thoughts on this one?
It's mostly good, although it was again not entirely like they didn't quite make everything quite clear and coherent. Because there was a part of it where the plot is that basically they receive a distress call from Rimmer's brother, who's a hologram, and he was caught up in this attack by the simulants, and they have to beam him to safety. But we don't actually see the attack. We only see the ship they use to beam him to, don't we?
Yes, that's right. We don't see anything from outside that derelict that they're hauling behind them.
No.
But if you remember, Rimmer actually said when they were describing the ship, this is the ship that his 3 brothers captain.
Yeah.
So, and his brother asking for a tour and let me see it, I thought was weird initially because I thought, well, he just said that his brother captained that ship. So, do you think having a tour of the ship was a wee bit weird?
Do you think they were suggesting there was a fleet of ships and that basically the Space Corps were in this area and that this was just one ship calling another or something?
Yes, but I thought it... pardon me. Terrible.
Right.
I thought it was weird just for the simple fact is 3 million years on and they come across the brother, which is fair enough. Being a hologram, we know they can last that long and if the ship's got power. But the simulant because the simulants are robotic, but my understanding was they're organic as well.
I suppose they're cybernetic. Self-repairing cybernetic, I suppose.
I suppose so, because you look at the simulants later on, it's body parts.
Yeah.
So I just found that a wee bit weird. Yes, the coincidental thing, and that's why they managed to do it. But the coincidence parts I thought were funny initially.
Yeah.
With Crichton and the cat.
Oh, the book of strange but true facts.
Yes, even the fact the two of them talk. Mind you, I did see the extras and how long that took to do. And
I love that. I love the fact that even Cat second guesses him about the moose.
Oh, the moose one was fantastic. I must admit, it was just perfect. Even when it's basically go, ha ha, I've got you. In the 1970s, there were accidents. Was this in Sweden? Huh?
Was he Swedish? A moose.
And they weren't driving. They were excellent. They weren't driving. They weren't in the car.
Yeah.
But I thought that was excellent. Just you could just see the smile when he thought he'd got someone dumber than him. And but some of the things they were saying, I must admit, I found quite funny. Like when they were talking about the Space Corps and all these jumped up super gluing your body parts to you and shaving your testicles and super gluing it to your face and paint you with luminous paint. Yes, sit watching Biggles go west without a torch for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And if I lay back 3 weeks, and if I lay back, it could be a lighthouse for a very small ship.
Yeah,
I thought was really good, but I did like the Scottish salad bar. Being Scottish, I did like that one because I don't touch salads. I'm not a salad man, so I find that hilariously funny.
Yeah,
and the fact that they basically used that as a joke, I could just imagine some people going, "That's no funny. That's thing me. That's basically against." And I thought, no, very funny, because the Scottish salad selection is it's not something I watch, and I usually walk past it. So the smaller it is, the better.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. But I found that quite funny. So I liked there was enough jokes in this. But the one thing I didn't feel is the same as previous seasons. As an opener, I don't think it was the strongest.
No, certainly not. I mean, it was kind of. I suppose if you wanted a story to show that Red Dwarf is back in business, maybe it was probably the right choice. Maybe
it probably was based on the rest in the season.
Yeah,
there was funnier ones in the seasons. There were ones that actually did an intro to the crew and stuff like that in the season better. Like Fathers and Sons was a better introduction to the characters again.
Yeah.
But I think Trojan is probably the best all-round one for that, because it didn't do the introduction very well. It didn't do the comedy very well, but as a story, it was probably a bit tighter than other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think it was the strongest all in all, because there was other ones that had better aspects of them. But as an introduction, I couldn't really think of another one that would actually fit in as well.
No, me neither.
So, which is unfortunate, because the two actually guest stars, Sim Crawford and Howard, I thought were actually very well played.
Mm-hmm.
And Susan Errol, who played Sim Crawford, I recognise her, but I don't know where I recognised her from. And I can't picture any other TV show she's been in. Yet, I did recognise her. And I know it's, even then when I first watched it, I recognised her. But I don't know what else she's been in. And I had a quick look in IMDb, and there's not a lot, but I didn't recognise anything she's been in. And I'm still trying to work out where I knew her from.
I will say the first time I watched this, I was a little bit thrown by Rimmer's decision to kind of leave his brother hanging until he did his exam. I thought I would have kind of liked to have seen the fact his brother was in danger bring out, a side of him we hadn't seen before, where he really did kind of, I want to, he's my brother, I've got to save him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, considering how rumours evolved, up until this point, yes, there has been a change with them back in the red, and it's meant to be a newer version of Rimmer and stuff like that. I think it would have been a bit better saying, no, we have to go and save him. However, we can delete as long as possible, but we still need to go. And it was Crichton that seemed to force that rather than Rimmer. And I think it would have been better if Rimmer had made the decision, even if he delayed it as long as possible. But it was to him, it says, we need to go because he's my brother.
Yeah.
Or in spite of him being my brother, I suppose would have been a better way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have been nicer for the character arc.
Yeah.
Because he has been improving gradually, even if it's on small leaps and bounds.
Yeah. I did like the way they used the running gag about the call waiting. And like I had a payoff in the end. I'm going for the phone.
Yeah. I liked that. Why did Crawford shoot at Rimmer if he's the one that's jumping for it? That's the part I didn't understand. It's not like he had already passed Rimmer before Howard decided to step in front of Arnold and get shot. So Lister is already on his way. So why didn't she follow him to shoot him?
I think
that was the part I didn't see.
I think she was aiming for Lister, but like he'd already left out the frame by the time she hit Rimmer.
Yeah. Maybe I just saw it as too slow, so maybe that's what it was, because he'd already passed where Howard was before Howard stepped in. So it's not like a case of the two of them moved at the same time and the shot went off. It just seemed that Lister had already passed both of them. Then Howard stepped in, then got shot. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's not like it all happened at the same time and it just so happened Howard got shot because he stepped in as Lister jumped past. Mm-hmm. It just seemed a bit slow for me in that, so it just made it look as if it dragged, and it should have, if it was quicker and it was tighter done, it would have probably looked a lot better. But because there was that gap between him moving, then Howard stepping in front, it made it too slow, as if Rimmer was the actual target rather than Lister, who she's threatened to do it to.
Yeah.
It's just that was a wee niggle for me, but that one. However, the faces had to get pulled in this, I must admit.
Yeah.
Did you see the extras in this one with that regard to that?
Nope.
Chris Barry says if he realised when he first did it that that's the face that all the three of them had to do for longer periods of times, he wouldn't have made it so cringy, because he realised when he first did it, it was only a wee glitch. So the second time he had to sit like that when they were talking about drawing faces on him. He had to sit like that, and then obviously you had Howard doing it, and then Crawford Sim having to do it, and she's still, and you could see in the extras she's good, and then she can't keep herself from laughing because of just how silly it looked. And I thought that was quite a good one. It was quite a good accidentally funny thing to happen, because he was the one that actually did it just as a joke, and because of that they had to keep it in. And I thought, well, that'll teach them. But I'm sure they actually would decide later on to be very careful what they did on the series. But they've always had that issue with Craig Charles constantly moaning about not getting kissed, and then they make him kiss Rimmer.
And a girl.
And the girl. Oh. The Gelf later on, that's another thing as well.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the Gelf when that episode comes up. That's quite an interesting
thing
there as well. But I think Mark Dexter and Susan Errol, the two of them, played their parts quite well.
I was thinking to myself, what if Howard had lived and he'd kind of stayed on as a regular, almost? That might have been interesting. I don't know.
I think, see, when Chris initially earlier on, like season 8, when he was talking about leaving,
Yeah,
then having the one, it seemed a bit more confident, but turned around to be just as bad. So you've got an incompetent who's very unsure of himself being replaced by an incompetent is so sure of himself. Could have been a different dynamic, and I think at that point it might have actually worked, even if later on Chris comes back and they decide to redo it. But yes, I think I would have liked to have seen him maybe replacing Chris at the time when Chris decided to leave, rather than the two of them being, because I think it would more a show about the one-upmanship between the two of them rather than Lister, because Lister would end up being the go-between, and he would be the referee a lot of the time. It'd be like me squared. I think it would go down that route if the two of them were there. But I could see him replacing Chris Barry if that was the way they were wanting to do it, keeping a hologram on board.
Keeping a Rimmer on board.
Yeah, and a Rimmer as well at that. It would have been a way to get a Rimmer on board without, if Chris had decided to leave and not come back.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I could have seen him continuing on, especially with the fact he seemed a bit more confident, but it turns out he's just exactly the same as his brother, deep down. So he's still the cowardly one, but he just seems a lot more confident. It would have been, the dynamics would have changed, but in the background it would have been very similar. It's just how they would have reacted to him. But then again, I kind of see the same chemistry because obviously the guys grew up together, I suppose, in the show, the 8 years in.
That's a good point. I mean, in this story, you do get the sense that the crew have aged, haven't they? Lister's older, Rimmer's older, and
like unfortunately, the cat's so much older.
Yeah, I mean, Lister's kind of become a bit of a. He's not as virile as he was. He's kind of in the period where he's just kind of he's got nothing to do except watch late night TV and gambling and sales pitch shows kind of thing. He's almost like all there is to watch is commercials, and like he watches the Stairmaster, the Stairmaster, and he kind of immediately gets tempted. And
yes, he's quite happy to sit on the phone for those hours. And
well, not happy, but he does it.
Yes, he does it because it's boredom and it's just something to do. It's the same as Zero G, the game. Quite happy to sit for hours, if not days on end, or even just watching. It's just things to keep them going, I suppose. Doesn't matter how interesting they are, as long as it fills time. So Trojan was a mixed bag, I think.
Yeah.
As a story, it had a decent premise, but I didn't think it was smooth like previous seasons episodes where it had a definite beginning, middle, end. It just sort of stumbled across the finish line.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, because it just wasn't as smooth, I think, and that's what the problem was.
I think of the season is the one I liked better than most, let's say.
So you prefer Trojan? You think Trojan was the better episode?
It was one of the better episodes, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, it definitely was. There was one that I didn't like as much, and there was one I loved when I first saw it, which has got a few issues nowadays.
Right. Well, we'll get to that, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Second one is Fathers and Sons. This one, no matter what, would never be filmed today. This is one of the few Red Dwarf ones that I think they would actually go, we can't film that. And it's because of the jokes.
You mean because of the making the computer and making
the whispers joke?
Oh yeah.
And the guy played the Medbot, but he also played one of the vending machines, Taiwan Tony.
Yeah.
I can't see that episode, considering how long they've got to an episode, that no matter what, it's never been hit. You can't see it being hit with the SJW or racist slurs or whatever, because the cast are so great and they slag each other and it's fine. This one, I think nowadays people would go, nope. And there would be a warning on this one.
I think the one that mainly, the one they probably couldn't get away with is Rimmer talking about like making the new computers breast size like ridiculous.
Aye. Which Rebecca Blackstone was good. However, they did make up a couple of mistakes, unfortunately, on this as well. The biggest mistake I noticed, believe it or not, was when they were doing the description, they were going, yes, whatever, make her blonde. So they mentioned making her blonde, but she was brown haired.
Yeah.
There was a couple of wee blonde streaks, but in effect, so did Crichton just actually go and take the defaults after all, and Rimmer just didn't notice? Because he asked, and just because one of the questions he asked, and he says blonde, where he obviously didn't select blonde, so all these other ones about breast size, and it's just, did Crichton eventually just take the default sizes when it came down to it? But I must admit, Fathers and Sons, I quite enjoyed the main story, the father and son one. I thought that was the funniest part of it. The pre one I didn't like that storyline.
Yeah, and pre kind of, she kind of became annoying after a while with the whole the repeated gag of you will now have this prediction of this conversation about the conversation, and that started to kind of it was funny at first, and then it kind of started to just get old.
Yes, and they used that to solve the problem and get Pre to uninstall herself, but he had to explain it to her, whereas she's been the one that's explaining how the conversations are going to go. So the fact that he had to explain all that sort of defeated the purpose of her stopping all the conversations by telling them what was going to happen, so they didn't have it, whereas he had to tell her as if I think there's been a goal scored. I can hear screaming in the background.
Yeah. Well, I think in that instance it was basically he kind of had to do that to penetrate a megalomaniac, and she seemed to kind of just go completely Ahab at the end.
Yes, I do think, but the fact that even though her megalomania has actually got to the point where she's basically doing things that are just absolutely crazy, no doubt about it, but still it would have been, I suppose, funnier if she had actually explained to him why she has to turn herself off, rather than him explaining to her, because she's been the one doing it. So that joke, the ongoing joke, which, yes, as you said, it got less funny as it went on, would have been a nice, I suppose, bow to the knot. It would have literally been, she's now explaining why she has to end her, rather than him having to explain it. I thought it would have been funny if she had to explain how she's crazy and she has to go because of the way she's been doing it, and it got a bit repetitive, but it would have been a nice way to end that repetitiveness, rather than him having to explain to her. And that's the part I just thought was a wee bit weird in this one. They set up the premise and then they ignored it just for the punchline, whereas I think the punchline would have been better if she had delivered it.
Yeah. I think, like, again, it goes back to, I feel like these stories are a little bit not entirely coherent, because like there is the main point of it is that it's Lister, when he records that message, he's basically predicting what he's going to do, but it didn't quite make lucid the fact that he was using pre to predict what he was going to do.
Yes.
Like, there was a line where he said, "I got a job for you," and then we cut to him waking up in a supermarket trolley, but you don't. So I think that kind of wasn't made entirely lucid. That why that video message knew everything that Lister was going to do. And I felt like they should have made that more coherent.
See, I actually feel the opposite. I actually think, yeah, because you imagine you're sitting there drinking to get yourself so snookered that you're going to forget what you said. But as you're saying it, you're sitting there thinking, well, I would know what I would answer if somebody told me that. And I thought that's what it was. It was a case of Lister knew exactly his reaction if somebody told him this.
Yeah.
and I found that quite funny. I liked the part with Gibson Les Paul. Do you see that over there? That's getting flushed out if you don't do it. Well, click.
Yeah.
Go and play the tune. I hate you. You never understood me. I thought that was quite very... I can remember that from when my kids were growing up.
Yeah.
I hate you. You don't understand how much I love that.
The funniest bit for me was like, now don't skip this until you've done the filing code, and then he skips, and then like the immediately like he's on the screen going, "What? You think I'm smegging stupid?"
And that was another thing. I thought they got arse for elbow, as they say. Remember how initially he's sitting playing a computer game, and Cat came in and says, "You run away from the dentist," and he goes, He says, "How do you know?" He says, "You've still got the bib on." Right? Yeah. So he'd been to the dentist. He was drinking that hooch to try and kill the pain because he says it, and then later on, he's back at the dentist still with his hooch, but the cat's sitting there saying, "I heard there was thingy." So is he saying that the hooch drinking sort of implied that?
Right. No, the anesthetic's supposed to mean that he can go into surgery. I don't think the hooch would keep him from feeling the pain during surgery.
Yeah, but they remember with the toothache. He had toothache, and right at the beginning, he was sitting playing a game, so he'd been to the dentist.
Yeah.
Because he ran away with the bib and it was still on. But that's when he was drinking the hooch.
Yeah.
To kill the pain. Yet when he went back, they found out that that was the last anaesthetic and the cat was in front of him. So surely they would have been offered the anaesthetic initially and he would have taken it. Because the hooch was only there to kill the pain.
Well, I just
thought it just seemed a wee bit tripping itself up.
Well, no, I think they had to inject him with the anaesthetic. I think they couldn't. That's the sense I got. I thought they had to inject him with the anaesthetic, and basically that was the first needle, and that was what. Like basically, they would have to inject in a needle, and maybe it was the needle that made him scarp.
No, because he says it was the drill. Remember, he says as soon as the drill started, I legged it.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what he had mentioned right at the beginning. I'm sure that's exactly what he said. Because he says you still got it. He says, "Did you hear the drill and leg it?" He goes, "How did you know?" He says, "You still got the bib on."
Yeah.
And that's it. It was almost like those two bits just didn't. It would have been better the first time going and the cat was there, and then the second time the cat coming in saying, "You've been again. How do you know?" Because you've still got the bib on. So it would have made the story a wee bit tighter. Whereas I think because it just seemed a wee bit out of sorts because Julie would have had the anaesthetic even if he decided to run when the drill started.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was drinking then to actually kill the pain. Which, as I said, it was a wee bit picky in my part.
Yeah. I mean, Pre was a weird one, wasn't she?
She was very weird.
Very grating.
I can't imagine if she'd lasted more than one episode. I think it would have just been too grating.
Yeah. I mean, she was different enough to Holly, I think. That was kind of where she worked.
Yes. I suppose it's the Queeg difference. The Holly characters between Holly and Hilly were very similar, but that was because of the type of comedian they got.
Yeah,
because Hattie was known as a female Norman Lovett when she was on the circuit, because her humour was very dry, same as Norman Lovett. So the two of them were very similar, comedic.
Yeah.
Whereas then you had Queeg, who was so different.
Yeah.
And it was definitely, you had no idea that was Holly playing the part, which I thought was a great way. But this one, yes, it's a new computer.
Yeah.
And I thought it was different enough, but it was also different enough that it was annoying enough.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see having a couple of guests throughout this season, different computers that they were trying from different ships they came across. I thought that would have been a nicer way, just to, because there's none of them are like Holly, and it's basically would have been a tie back that no matter what one you get, there's something different. That Holly, it's definitely not Holly. It could have been like another Queeg type, or something there. It basically just does nothing for them, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it would have been nicer if they had the occasional one throughout the season, so that they were as if they were trying to get the computer working again.
Yeah.
Because they have said in the past, Holly actually controls everything. So if Holly's not there, why is everything still working?
Well, I mean, there's no it's working, but there's no overseer.
Yes. So, Fathers and Sons, what did you think on the story as a whole?
Wasn't as good as the first episode. I don't know. It was a little bit of a I suppose it was them trying to do something a bit more philosophical about like Lister's relationship with, Lister's life and how he's kind of, why he's a drifter, because he's never really had any proper stern guidance. So I mean, on that level, I suppose it was quite, but it was. I suppose it was. It's like I'm going to say this quite often. I feel like in a way, maybe the writers were a bit out of practice, still a little bit out of practice for the show. And I feel like this was them kind of probably nearly sticking the landing. Yeah,
I think I thought the fact that they tried to go a wee bit philosophical with the father-son thing.
Yeah,
I think they went a wee bit overboard with it. Just for the simple fact is, after the Roberus one, we knew who his father was, but he'd already said about growing up as an orphan and did all that.
Yeah.
And then I liked the idea of it, whereas he realised that he was at fault for not bringing him up because he was his own father.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, yes, that is... The idea of it was good, but I thought the way they actually tried to answer it by doing the drunk scene was funny. The skipping all the messages and thinking everything and trying to bully himself into doing things and resigning. I thought that was funny, but as a story, I thought it was a bit too contrived.
I mean, like, it was almost like the subplot should have been just a subplot, but it became the plot.
Yeah, it was a nice wee story in the background, but that being the main thing. Whereas Pre was technically the main one, but it seemed more in the background. It just was almost like they wanted both of them to be higher priority, but they couldn't juggle it.
Yeah,
and that's what I thought was the thing that let this one down.
Yeah.
And obviously the Taiwan Tony and some of the jokes about Chinese whispers, I thought were a wee bit just too much.
Maybe.
And it's only because the difference, I remember they used to call it telephone in certain places. I remember playing it, but it was nothing to do with you say something to someone and they try and remember it and say it to somebody else. It was a case of whispering it so nobody else could hear what you said. So it was the fact that you couldn't quite hear it because they're trying to keep it quiet. Whereas if somebody tells you something, then asks you to go to somebody else, even if it's 10, 15 minutes later or the next day, a simple sentence you're not going to forget. And that's where I think it fails.
Yeah.
on that one, because it takes the premise of Chinese whispers, which is literally whispering so nobody else in the group can hear except that one person, and you have to pass it round because it's that quiet. You need to strain to pick up what they're saying, so that's where the words can fail or you mishear them because they're quiet. But the fact that they're standing and just talking, and then they're meant to forget exactly the words, as if I could see the premise of the joke, but what's the word? The execution of the joke didn't work, I think. But it's definitely a joke. It could not be put in anything nowadays.
No.
They could imagine the kickback that would get. That would get a lot of kickback, that one. But oh dear, dear, dear. But considering it was the second episode of when was season 9? That was 2001.
No. It's 2004. I think it was 2000. I think it might have been 2010, 2009. I'm going to look it. I'll look it up anyway.
I've got it here. Hold on, let's see. I've got IMDb here. So season 9. 2009. I thought it was actually earlier. So there was only a 4-year gap or 3-year gap between the both of them.
Yeah.
So considering the 3-year gap, they had already, I suppose, established it with being back in the red, and back in the earth. So they tried in the last 2 seasons. They had tried something different, and yes, there was a big gap between 8 and 9, and then there was a smaller gap here. But still, I suppose they're still trying to get back into season 1 type of flow because of the time frame, and with the back to earth, that was almost like the relaunch they tried to do. And obviously there was meant to be a movie. That's why you had the American pilot, or both American pilots. Do you know what I found out today about the American pilots? See, the first one, right, it failed. So they decided the second one, and they brought in Terry Farrell and Jane Leaves, who played Holly.
Oh, she was in the first one. She was
in the first one. It was Rimmer. They replaced Rimmer and the cat. Do you know, for the second one, they actually asked Chris Barry and Danny John-Jules to reprise their part, and it was only Craig Jarrells that never got asked to appear. They even asked Norman Love. I'm sure they asked Norman or Hattie. I think because I think it was Norman. So Craig Jarrells was the only one of the original cast that never got asked to reprise his role. So it was, and I thought, that's unfair. It just goes to show, because they couldn't replace any of the other ones, they asked them to step in. And Craig Biko and Danny John-Jules both said the one it should have stepped in would have been James Belushi to play Lister. So I just found it. Found it that I didn't realise that. I knew there was an issue because Robert had been cast, and he was told to keep it a secret. But I didn't know they'd asked the other two. But then again, because it failed, you got Dax on Deep Space Nine, so it's Terry Farrell, and you got what you call it on
James Leaves.
Jane Leaves as I'm trying to remember her character name, Daphne in Fraser. Because if they had picked up Red Dwarf, you wouldn't have had those two characters in those two shows, which I think they actually suited better. Jane Leaves is definitely was a Daphne. She wasn't a Holly. And Terry Farrell was definitely a Dax, not a cat.
Yeah. I think, I mean, in terms of this being Series 9 and 10 being the relaunch, and trying to get back to the thing is, the first 2 seasons are kind of they're an entity into themselves. I mean, it's like you almost feel like Parallel Universe is kind of a natural end for that phase of the show, and it's like if that was all that Red Dwarf, if Red Dwarf hadn't continued beyond that, that would be kind of a nice boxed off phase.
Yes.
And this season, not so much. This season doesn't quite feel like it's self-contained.
Aye, because there was a lot of references backwards and forwards. I do think there was a couple of times they actually kept mentioning things that happened in the past, but they changed them.
Well,
Didn't you notice that?
Kind of, but I mean, it was more the feeling that I don't know. It feels like Series 10 wasn't quite. What's the word? It just didn't quite have the memorability of the first two seasons.
Yeah, I quite agree with that. As I said, the very first time I watched it, the next episode was my favourite, Lemons.
Yeah.
However, on the rewatch, it's less memorable because I think after watching up until this point once a week, a season a week, they aren't as memorable as season 1, 2, 3. No. Definitely not. There is the ones in this season. You just need to remember something that happened in one of the first 3 seasons, one of the episodes, and you can picture it. You can picture how it was delivered, the joke, and the lack of canned laughter. Because I think this one had canned laughter, and it actually showed.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. But I think, yes, this one is not as memorable. There's not enough within the whole season that you could say, there you go, there's a couple of Red Dwarf moments that are quotable throughout the whole season, per episode throughout the whole season. Right. Whereas you can go back to most of them. Even Back to Earth had a couple of Red Dwarf moments in each of the episodes that you could say, that's a Red Dwarf quotable moment.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the story becomes memorable when Jesus shows up, but up until then, it's a bit forgettable.
Yes.
And even after that, there's bits that are forgettable. But it's like the moment when Jesus, when this is Jesus, and then Jesus actually turns around. Sorry.
And that guy, James Baxter, he was really good at it. And yes, he had the sort of Cockney or Northern England accent. Yeah. Not an issue. It's just, but even in that, see, right when they landed on Earth and the cat slagged them everywhere there's Earth, it's always Earth to use people. It was the fact his Crichton just went, this is Albion, and you're like, how did he know? And it's that aspect of it. It's not like they landed at night and he looks up and he says, based on that, we're in Earth, and based on the because he could call back charts, because that's what a lot of people say, because they can actually, based on the flow of the stars in the sky, they can work out where they were and how they looked on a particular night, on a particular day, should I say, on a particular date. They can say the sky. This is where the stars were.
You know, I think I know what you're saying. It's like when you're reading a book, basically, you're not told where you are. You're given the feeling of the surroundings. So it's almost like you're blind and you're making out the surroundings from what's described, what's felt, what's confronted, what confronts the protagonist. And it's like that helps set the scene. And I feel like there wasn't quite that. It was just like an info dump of, oh, here we are. And there was no investigation of where they were.
Yeah, it's just, you just see Crichton doing that. It's not a case of maybe they landed and they didn't know where they were. It's an Earth-like planet and they're sitting down and Crichton's looking up and thinking, actually, those and I've checked my database, and if I do this extrapolation, we're on Earth in this date.
You know, the two bits that kind of I didn't quite kind of threw me a bit was, firstly, it didn't really feel in character for Rimmer to be rubbishing Shakespeare, because like back in Marooned, he was the one saying, don't burn the only copy of Shakespeare there is. It just felt like that Rimmer was never that much of a Philistine.
Exactly. He basically always saw them as the type of people to look up to, because people saw him as smart and influential, and then him coming on and saying all that rubbish, and I'm sitting there thinking, did they forget? But that's the type of thing I thought it was almost like a callback to certain things, and then they got it wrong. So the Shakespeare, then it was the back with the books, and then this one he's basically rubbishing them. Later on, there's other aspects that they mention. Oh, what I'm trying to remember what it is. It was last one in with Pre.
Yeah,
and he was talking about how I did it, how you did it. So, yeah, he says I wouldn't have done this and stuff like that. Yeah, there was the one with the Inquisitor. Sorry, Justice World.
Yeah,
where he got annoyed because he was called incompetent by Crichton in his trial.
Yeah.
So it was almost a case of then he was saying, I'm not incompetent, I'm not that incompetent, I did this and did that. So he didn't want the defence of his incompetence causing it. Whereas this one, he says, because I'm incompetent.
Yeah.
It's no Rimmer. Rimmer wouldn't actually say, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it this bad. You're just extrapolating it based on how your opinion of me, that is not how I would have done it.
Yeah.
But he just gave in to the fact is, oh, I'm incompetent, so this is why it's actually in such a state. He didn't argue the point, and that's what I'm saying about how sometimes I felt they were calling back to things and then completely twisting them so they didn't make sense.
Well, the other thing about the Shakespeare thing was it kind of, again, it was one of those gags that went on too long.
Yes. Saying it once, then having the same idea as the Swedish moose, just a reference, like, for instance, but that got us out, and it didn't need to be the ones that had read. It didn't need to be Lister or Rimmer that said it. It could have been the cat or Crichton just saying it off the top of her head, but because, as you said, they should see me milk it, so it was almost like that got us out of a pickle, and almost staring at him and giving him a big grin as if to say, "See." And it's, well, you're not meant to either know, or if you did know, then you're just saying it because of that.
On the nose, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if the cat had said it, like, for instance, so this is fit for a king. He just said it, but it was, I mean, then at that point, it was a funny joke. But when Crichton said it, it was almost like, that guy's out of a pickle, and a big smile, as if to say, see, as if he'd been aware of the conversation between Lister and Rimmer.
Like, the other one was the thing about the idea that the rejuvenation shower accidentally becomes a time machine. That was a little bit
contrived.
You know what?
Contrived.
It reminded me of a really, really dumb Russell T Davies story.
But I've seen comments on that shouldn't have happened because Crichton's got a translation circuit, right?
Yeah.
And he should have been able to read the instructions in Swedish, because if he can read Jesus's handwriting and translate it, then but the other guys are reading it, so it's obviously not in Swedish. It's in English. It's just it's badly translated English.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of things that you see, bracket A fits into bracket B is described as bracket A is put long sides into the side of bracket B, and you're sitting there thinking that doesn't make sense because somebody's literally translated it word for word, and the words of different languages don't always mean what they're meant to mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've seen criticism because that should have been built properly, because Crichton could have read it properly. But that made no difference. It was all to do with the fact is the other guys could read it because they were the ones that were reading it off. So it must have been in English. And it was just not very well translated. And the standing joke that you've always got bits and pieces left. I don't know how many bits and pieces I had left after I built these shelves. So yeah, even in flat pack shelves, you always get bits and pieces extra.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe it was they could have thought that out better. Maybe thought of a better way for them to end up back in the past.
Well, I think so too. I think it would have been better. Yes, they've used things like the paddle and stuff like that, but considering Lister has rebuilt Crichton.
Yeah.
And he couldn't work out how to build a thing it's got instructions, whereas he had to rebuild Crichton without really instructions, or he had to teach himself it.
Well, no, it's not so much that. It's more the idea that the shower has time travel capability. I thought that was
Well,
a bit...
that as well, but even the fact is they misbuilt it, and that's what caused it. But the fact is, the misbuilding it part was bad enough as it was. And then the fact that it had time... What has rejuvenation got to do with travelling back in time and space? Because it's not just time they travelled in.
Well,
if they travelled back in time, they would have been in the middle of deep space still. Remember the previous one when they built the time drive?
Well, no, I think the implication was that they got it so wrong because it was supposed to just reset your body to a particular age you were when you were in your prime. But I think because they got it wrong, it ended up sending them back in time. So it was almost like it was the fact they badly assembled it that caused it to have that side effect. But
yes, but that side effect only sends them back in time because remember they have used that.
Yeah.
Then when they built the time drive at the end of season 7, remember they destroy themselves. No, season 6.
Well, do you think maybe? Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but do you think maybe the implication is that because the thing was made on Earth, it was kind of designed on Earth, and maybe then whoever uses it, it is set back to back to wherever the device started from, because it was from Earth, then maybe it will, that's his connection. That's what connects you to Earth, and obviously sends you back.
No, I think I don't know why they decided it was not only a time travel device, but it was a time and space travel device. I just thought that was a bit weird. And also they could control it. The first time they did it, right? So let's say it was a time and space travel device. They pressed the button and it sent them back to Albion in the year 23. Yet Jesus could actually control it to send them back to India in the year 23. So he could actually put it so it puts him in a particular place in a particular time.
Well, maybe he pressed the reset button, so it's basically it's almost like a fast return, just send you back to where you came from when you last used it. The last place you teleported from, it sends you back there, maybe.
Yes, so if Crichton did it to follow him, surely it should have brought him back up. It's that type of thing. That's what I'm saying. It's the fact is it travelled in time and space at all was the thing, as you said. It was a leap that they could have actually thought of another way around it. But the fact is, the time travel stuff always seems weird.
Yeah.
When they do it, and it's so. Why don't, as you said, they could have invented anything. They could have found the Hollyhock drive. It had been sitting next to this rejuvenation thing, and it actually not only sends them in the time, it sends them in a time and place back in time. They just didn't know, and so they could have done something like that. It would have been a wee bit. Can we say believable?
Plausible.
More plausible. But as you said, that bit, the rejuvenation shower sending them back in time was bad enough. But sending them back in time and space.
There's that rule, isn't there, on TV? Never ask your audience to believe too many impossible things at once.
Yes. Yeah.
So what about the Jesus subplot? Because I thought that was quite good, but it was
entertaining. I think that's the best I could say about it. That was the part I enjoyed because it was very entertaining. Yeah. However, there was parts in it I didn't like.
Okay.
Like, for instance, remember the bit where they're describing to Jesus about the battery?
Yeah.
And so Crichton goes all about how you put a battery together and you do this and you generate 8 volts, you put them together, He says, one question, what's a lemon?
Right.
Nice, funny line, because it's almost as bad as a cat saying, I had everything up then, right up until you said simply.
Yeah.
So right at the beginning. But remember, Jesus, his friend, Erin, played by Indra Joshi.
Oh yeah.
Which she's been in a load of stuff. She's been in Coronation Street, EastEnders. Oh, she's been in, even I recognise her from a lot of different things. She's been in so much. I mean, she's a great character actress. But the fact is, he's friendly with her. She sells lemons, and he doesn't know what a lemon is. So the joke, when you realise that, it's no funny. So the first time I saw it, it was a nice punchline. But because of that, I thought, is it really that? Is that really funny? Because his friend knows what a lemon is. So him saying, but what's a lemon, isn't funny anymore.
Well, I mean, well, I mean, you can be friends with someone who works in a particular shop and not necessarily know all the items in the shop. Like, I mean,
she only sold lemons. If you look at her bags, her basket, she only sold lemons.
Okay.
That's what I was meaning. It's not she had a stall. She was sitting there and she had the baskets, and it was just lemons she was selling.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That it's just a case of that's a wee bit, I suppose, implausible that he didn't know what a lemon was.
Well, I mean,
even if you don't know what people sell, you know the name of things that are sold around you in the local area. Yeah, I mean, but it's just yes, we know it as a common item now, and then it was a rare item. However, it just seemed a bit implausible, so the joke didn't land with me this time. First time I saw it, I thought it was a nice punchline.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things. In the second viewing, there was too many things. I thought the bag. There was another thing. I've made my JC bag. I've got one hanging up my wall. Thought it was a good, clever item to fixate on. Yeah. But they turned around and says bags weren't invented. Oh, but bags were invented just because they called it a satchel made out of goat hide. What is a satchel? It's a bag. So there's effectively, Crichton says bags weren't invented. Except if you were rich, then you had a bag. They just called it a satchel. So basically, couldn't they make it out of any other material? Like, for instance, your clothes, you fold a bit up and just made it like a satchel right that. So they had bags, but they didn't have bags. Didn't make sense. And it's wee silly things like that. Like, for instance, they mention about the demons. So as soon as they mention that, you know somebody's going to fall ill. And it had to be one of the ones from that time frame because they mentioned the demons cause illnesses and stuff like that. But also the fact is they still thought the earth was flat. No, they didn't. The Greeks in something like 1200 BC knew the world was round. That's just a fallacy. It just seemed to be people were so backwards that everybody thought the earth was flat, which they didn't. Because most of the educated world, which was round the Mediterranean, all knew it was round. And so they're implying that things like that annoy me. It's when they do things that are a fallacy and they just play on it. Yes, it's done for laughs, so it's got a wee bit of leeway on it, but it's just things like that. So do you know the funniest joke? And it was the cat it brought it up. Was when they were talking about the medical fridge.
Well,
then remember at the beginning, he's cooking. Lister's cooking the bit of steak, the rib, and the bit of liver. Yeah. And the cat comes in and just eats it. Oh, this is lovely. Could do with more sauce and could have cooked it a bit longer and all that. And he walks out. And then when Crichton says about giving the operation to Jesus, he says, "Oh yeah, I do it all the time." Did you do it all the time? What? I might need that. He says, yeah, I keep it in the fridge outside my quarters. And you could just see the cat looking. And then the penny drops. And it goes, because that's the parts he's cooked up, which was his own body parts that Crichton had taken out. And he cooked it, and the cat had ate it.
Oh, I never caught that. I thought that Crichton's got the body part nearer him, so this didn't have them or something.
Yeah, because you think about it, when the cat says, "Where did you get it?" He says, "I found it in a freezer outside Crichton's quarters in B-Deck."
Oh, right.
And Crichton says, "Yeah, I keep them in a freezer just outside my quarters." That was it. And then the cat goes, and then runs. I thought that was hilarious. That's only just the simple fact. Same again. Cat that said nothing and stole the scene. Just with a look in his face.
The funniest bit for me was when they're trying to talk Jesus down from because Jesus is about to trash his reputation. He says, "I don't want Christianity. I don't want this and that to happen because of me." And Leicester saying to him, "Look, I mean, you talked about as being this great guy. I thought I could never compare with you, but you're ordinary. In fact, you're a bit of a knob."
Yeah. Those bits, I must admit, that bit was funny, where he's basically saying, because you're normal like me, so I'm no as bad because I don't need to live up to these high standards that I've put on you. I can see you're just as bad as me, which was a good thing. That no matter, that's what they say, never meet your heroes, because they're sure to disappoint. Because believe it or not, they're not heroes, they're just people. And that's the aspect of it. So I like that part of it. I like this story. I love this story. This was my favourite one. On second viewing, it has dropped a couple. It's definitely, there's funny parts in it. There's some good story parts in it, but there's too many plot holes that it just sort of jumps. It basically would have been better actually doing a shark travelling through times and just jumped it, rather than actually doing that, because I think on second viewing it jumped the shark for me, which was unfortunate because it was one of my favourites.
Do you feel like, I mean, I know they couldn't have it, they had to reveal in the end it wasn't the real Jesus, didn't they?
Of course, aye.
But do you feel like in a way that kind of makes it feel like it's a bit of a cop-out and makes it almost a bit of a non-story because of it?
It was. Well, apart from anything else, there's Jesus reading the history book. And you're trying to tell me the history book didn't mention Jesus of Nazareth? The fact that Jesus could actually read a modern day English book, but when he was writing in Hebrew or whatever, he could read in English on the. I thought, somebody's not thought it through. Yeah. Basically, having maybe given them the control to the thing and tell him to speak to it, and it would explain things to him. Would have been better, like a computer actually screening talking them through things.
Or documentary.
Oh, that documentary type thing. So basically he was sat up the night before watching all these documentaries about things, and then he found it came across him, but reading the book. So if he read the book in English and he wrote, and it just seemed a wee bit, as I said, the plot holes just thickened. But the fact that we knew it had to be, they knew it couldn't be. Yeah, because it was. But even at the end, when you've got Judas and Jesus, the twins, it's just a case of, how many people did that upset? And it's just one of those things. It's done for laughs, but can you imagine any other religion that can be mocked like that? No, and I suppose that I'm non-religious. I'm an atheist, but so I can laugh at most things. But I see it when you do it one-sided. I think it's just a wee bit disrespectful, even though you could do something funny which doesn't disrespect it, because the fact that it wasn't who they thought it was, and even when they did think it was him, they were still trying to say, there were all these bad things happening, but look at all the good things you did. So they try to balance it out, saying that bad things happened in your name, but look at all the good things that happened in your name as well, which was good in that respect. But so you had to change it, so they had to get it, so you knew it wasn't going to be. But the JC bags at the end, I thought, well, there's just material. Couldn't have actually worked that out for themselves?
Yeah.
You stuff in your face?
Finish off on the wine gums.
I've got a box of them as well. I love my wine gums, midget gems, and bananas and shrimps.
I'm going to need some anesthetic for the dentist soon. If I keep eating these.
No, the feeling but I'm literally terrible for that. But
I wish I could say save the lemon last, but I haven't. Save the orange.
No, you couldn't actually leave lemon for last because you're on lemon, so you had to actually do it. You had to do it.
I've eaten several.
Yeah. I'm actually tempted as well, but I don't want to actually stuff my face because I just had my dinner just before we come on, so I'll be a good boy.
Down my
wine gums, what? No jelly babies.
I went to my local train station because that's got a cash machine and it's run only across the road. The station shop didn't have jelly babies; it only had wine gums.
Yeah, I've actually got a full drawer full of sweets here, and I've got a few bananas and shrimps. I love my bananas and shrimps. And they're half empty, so they are. So I try to be a good boy, but I've also got midget gems, I've got wine gums, and I've got fruit pastels as well. I do like junk food.
So, lemons, final verdict?
Oh, on a rewatch, I would drop it down. It went from being my favourite episode to being a mediocre episode. It definitely dropped from being my favourite. Not to my least favourite, but definitely right in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was only just because I was a bit more critical.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
What about yourself? What did you think?
It was great when Jesus came up, but up until then, it was kind of dragging a bit for me.
I think Jesus did save this episode. If they spent less time with him, it wouldn't have been as funny.
No. It's like you end up with kind of half an episode of greatness rather than a full episode of greatness.
Yeah. And even though there's one or two bits and pieces that's easy to pick at, that's why I'm saying it went from my favourite down to the middle of the pack, is because there is enough funny bits with the Jesus part that kept it from being the least favourite on second watch.
But like again, it's like with series 4 or 5, like you'd see all these, and even series 6, like you'd have these episodes where you think, look, Red Dwarf would be none of these episodes you could take or leave. They're like they're part of the canon. They're kind of the solid, they're part of the what makes Red Dwarf Red Dwarf. Even this one I could take or leave. Most of the stories so far I could take or leave.
And this one, if I was wanting to sit and watch Red Dwarf, I don't think season 10 would actually jump to my high list now.
No.
Lemons would have in the past. Lemons was one of my favourites of the whole thing. And it's definitely in my top 10 episodes, Lemons. Mm-hmm. But now it's because I've watched it again with a more critical eye. Sometimes watching things with a critical eye is a bad thing to do, because when you're just watching it for fun, not thinking about it, things pass. When you sit and think about it, you go, ooh. And I think I'm finding more about being a bit too critical on certain ones. But there has been none of the first 3 are ones that I would say I'd be jumping to rewatch. I would watch them if they were on, but I wouldn't jump to rewatch, because there's earlier seasons I would rather watch than this one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, again, this is kind of the foundation for hopefully it's going to get better and better. But so far it's still a foundation. It's still kind of feet finding, isn't it?
See, I thought this was part of the valley. So you had 8, which was starting to go down. Then you had 9, and then 10 was starting to come up the other side. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that's exactly how it's going to go, rather than it's just continuing down or flat lining out.
Yeah.
But on rewatch, when it jumped up my expectations, was Entangled. Initially, this one was a mediocre one for me, but I think on rewatch it was a wee bit better. What did you think of Entangled?
Similar to Lemons in that the first half dragged a bit, and then the second half was where it kind of got better. But like even then, I felt like it wasn't entirely coherent. Like, because there was the whole business of List had this whole off-screen adventure on that planet with the garbage eaters.
Yes, why didn't he show bits of that?
I know, and then when he came back and he said like, "Oh, I've lost Starbug, and I gambled Starbug and I gambled Rimmer." So I assumed basically the Rimmer was still on the planet and held captive.
Yeah.
And then he appears on screen like he's just like he never left. And I thought, wait a minute, what's going on? It's because at first I thought maybe there was some kind of parallel universe where there was this kind of dimensional shift where Lister was landing on where one version had Rimmer on Red Dwarf but Lister not, and then the other was Lister was on Red Dwarf and Rimmer wasn't, or something like that. But no, it was just that Rimmer wasn't there. He was basically gambled away in absentia.
Yeah. So, and also the fact is the Begs.
Yeah.
They needed Crichton to translate, which you didn't know they spoke English, but they needed Crichton to translate. Yet when he was down on the planet on his own, he managed not only Starbug and Rimmer, he had to explain to them that obviously he had a hologram if they wanted to gamble. So he had to somehow let them know. So how did they not know that they could communicate, considering they communicated?
Yeah.
And that's the parts that there were some good bits in it, like for instance the Beg Chief.
Yeah.
What was Lister's bride in Emo Hawk? It was the same guy who played the bride.
Yeah.
And he played the Beg here. I like that when they actually bring people back to play a similar character, because under the makeup it works. But it's just the fact that it's the same guy who played the missus. I thought because of that they would have made some joke about the missus. Yeah. But they didn't. I think it would have been funny if they had made a joke about the missus, because it's the same guy played both parts. Okay. I mean, things like look at him, Christ almighty, my missus would even turn him down, or something like that. A wee offhand joke.
Yeah.
I thought would have been fun to put in there just as a wee nod.
Yeah.
But even the fact is, see their special effects, they were rubbish. Did you see how many times did you see the bomb on his crotch that you could see the dial had 0000 on it? And you're sitting there thinking, did nobody even actually think we better actually keep that going? Because it was times it was at 0000. And it's not just a wee glance, it was actually on him. He was talking, and there it's sitting at 4 zeros. So in effect, it should have gone off.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I feel like, again, it's like we only realised the stakes later on when he reveals the bomb was on him. So it feels like they should have established the stakes straight away from the start.
Yeah.
You should have seen, and because I feel like that then you would have got into the story immediately. Whereas here, it kind of felt like you're being given belated reasons to get into it.
Yes. Even if they'd, as you said, they'd set it up because it was almost like a split part. Whereas if they'd set it up with him going down and not knowing what he'd lost until maybe one of the Begs who did speak English explained to him what he's lost. And by the way, this is why you're dressed like this, because he could have been overnight having a few drinks, wakes up and that's on and wondering what it is. Then explaining to him, yeah, we basically, you lost this, and you need to get it down here or else kabam.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. So how did he know all that if he thought the Begs couldn't speak English? It's that aspect of it. And you're sitting there thinking, so did Crichton actually turn around and say, so how do you know that? So one of the Begs must have been able to speak English. And it's wee things like that I go, and that's an unfortunate side effect. It's bits like that usually drop it for me. Although I liked the subplot with Professor Eddington.
Yeah, I did.
I liked that.
Yeah.
And she, the girl, what was Sydney Stevenson.
Just gonna check now.
Sydney Stevens or Stevenson or something like that. I knew it was a guy's name. That's why when I heard their name was Sydney, I suppose that's one of the ones. Because I thought it was a guy. I'm thinking, was the Sydney Stevenson one of the Begs? And then I realised it was actually her, the Professor. Stevens.
Sydney Stevens as Professor Eddington, yeah.
Stevenson, aye, right. But she was really good in the part because she did just look highly intelligent, but you could almost see the question mark hanging above her head when she was doing things. Do you know what I mean? She looked intelligent, but it's almost like there's something not quite right. And that's what I'm saying. It's almost like you could see a question mark. She looked confused and right.
Like she was a bit of a, you could tell she was kind of a bit of a klutzy geek.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Which, it's unfortunate the way she ended up. But
I know. She once had like a human woman on board, and like it was like all the troubles of kind of loneliness are over. You knew she was kind of she's going to
of course.
She has to die.
And the fact that is basically nobody could have said anything because the cat's always the one that's actually thinks it's going to be him that all the women are going to fawn over if they ever meet them.
Yeah.
Lister's always looking for Kajansky, and Rimmer gets another girl.
Yeah.
Well, fails to get another girl, but in effect, he's had more love interests than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Unless you discount Dave Tran's sister.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I mean, it was kind of cold the way they got rid of her, but it was like it was kind of the right kind of cold, but it was like, oh dear, she's jumped out, and like, this is like, if you got a pen to fill in the form. But
then again, I thought it was quite cold as well with the Trojan with his brother.
Yeah,
watching his brother die, and he just I lied because, and that I thought was a bit cold for the same reason. However, that scene with his brother dying brings another fault that I noticed when I first watched it. I must admit, there's two bits in this that fail. Right, see when they're going through the bulkhead. You see Rimmer sort of shaking, and then his outfit turns from blue to red, signifying soft light, and he could walk through it.
I know you're going to say now, light bee.
He's light bee. How could his light bee travel through it? But even at that, when he unlocks it and walks back out, he's dressed in blue. But he stops and goes, "Oh," as if he's changing back. And I'm thinking, why is he shuddering like that? Because he did that when he was changing from hard to blue, soft light. And yes, if he was changing from soft to hard light, but he's already changed to hard light, and he came out and did that, and I thought, that makes no sense. But the fact that he walked through made no sense, because even if you hadn't remembered all the bits in the past, the fact that they established the light bee in Trojan, it just sort of really, But I did like, there was some funny bits in it, like for instance, Crichton, take the stairs one at a time, slowly. Go and get her some clothes. Take your time now, slowly. I just thought that was funny. You could just imagine basically the stupidness that guys had never seen a woman in 3 million years do. And then basically walked over, what are you doing? But I don't know. Initially I wasn't as keen on this, and I think it was because the start was too slow. There was too many wee bits. Even the bit when he was actually unlocking the crotch.
Oh.
It's definitely alpha. No, it might be beta. No, it might be. And what one did she not say? That one, right? So it's down to 2 minutes, and he presses beta. I thought it needed 5 digits. It didn't need the 4. So he only pressed the 4th digit, and then it fell off. Surely he needed to do press beta then gamma.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's things because they established it needed a 5 digit, yet he only had to press in the 4th and it dropped off because it assumed the 5th one. It's not how codes work. You don't put 4 of them in, there's only 1 left, so it assumes you're going to press it anyway. So no problem. It just that part I thought, stop that. And I thought, bummer.
Do you think maybe they should have kept Stevens on board? Maybe as a part of the crew?
I think so. I think it would have actually worked a bit better being klutzy.
Yeah.
Her and Rimmer try to get together, but one of the two of them always fail at something, like they turn up at the wrong room, or she falls in a cupboard and locks the door behind her, and by the time they find her, or Rimmer actually, he's so entranced with the fact that he's got a date. He actually doesn't listen to her where she says where they're going to meet. They could have done that, especially even just for if it was for 2 or 3 episodes to the end of the season, maybe.
Yeah.
And give her a better end.
Yeah.
Maybe she would have been the one instead of the Hoagie. Basically found the gun, and then she maybe fired it, and because she fell through, and that's how she disappeared from the ship due to a clumsy accident like that. But it would have been interesting to see how her and Rimmer falling in love, and two of them, one incompetent and one a klutz, would have been funny for them constantly missing each other. Would have been something to see.
Well, it would have been a nice sea change as well, in a way, for the show.
Yeah, it would have been. I think it would have actually, the dynamics could have played around with the different dynamics again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it was only for maybe until the end of the season, and they didn't go any further, because they brought Kachansky in to do that.
Yeah.
And then they dropped it. They dropped Chloe in it because the dynamics didn't seem to work. But bringing in another one to try a different dynamic, because she was always trying to get back. Lister was always in love with her. Crichton was always jealous of her. Rimmer and the cat didn't care. Mm-hmm. This one where you could have had Rimmer falling in love with her falling in love with him, trying to get together. Crichton try to help them.
Yeah.
But try to stay out the way so he didn't get jealous like he did. Lister and the cat just leaving them to it and not even paying attention. But when she's there, try to charm her as well, try to wonder why she's with Rimmer or that type of thing. So they're trying their charms on. They can imagine the cat's charms. He's that hotter than him and his Speedos.
Yeah.
But you could just imagine the parts like that. I think it would have actually worked a bit better because it would have different dynamics rather than the Kachansky one being that somebody Lister loved, although it's not the one that Lister loved, and he seems to understand that. Weird. Yeah. But I think she would have been actually quite a nice, even for a couple of episodes, just maybe another episode just to, and then gradually fall out the airlock because of her klutziness, because you could have established that she would fall indoors because she forgets to pick her feet up, and she always gets locked in. So she might have done it at the airlock once and presses the wrong button, rather than it just happening so quickly. I think it would have been nicer for a couple of more episodes with that dynamic.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't.
Yeah,
I think this was probably one of my favourites for this season.
All right, cool.
So it was, and I think it's initially I thought it was but this one, because a wee bit more critical, I think it actually holds up better than a few of the other ones. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why for me I enjoyed it. I think it's actually climbed to one of the higher ones, and it's because it basically, my expectations weren't dashed after a rewatch. Mm-hmm. So it holds up a bit better. What about yourself?
I have to say this was the one I remembered the least of, but although I did remember certain bits came back to me obviously after rewatching it. And I kind of think once I saw that box of complaint forms at Irene's feet, I kind of knew, she's going to trip on that and fall out the airlock, isn't she?
They ruin it in the DVD.
Oh, did they?
See, when you go to the DVD and you press, instead of play all, you select episodes, it takes you down a corridor and it comes to a box of forms, and then it sidesteps and continues on. So you know that box of forms is something within it when you're watching the DVD, because it goes to the episode guide, which are the machines, the snack machines. But you have to navigate around it, or basically it sidesteps it as it's walking down the corridor to that bit. I just thought it was a wee bit of a trivia that I thought, that box means something. And then obviously an entanglement, it did mean something. Trip.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the last two.
Yep.
Dear Dave, we'll start with that.
Thoughts
on Dear Dave?
It wasn't exactly a high stakes story, was it? It was a bit more of it was a little bit of a series one throwback, but I don't know. There was a lot of random stuff going on in the back that just seemed a little bit contrived, like the business with the toilet roll and the.
That made zero sense to me. That business with the toilet roll. It's almost like it was just filler, and I think that was because they ran out of money. And that's one of these episodes are one of the cheap ones because I think the beginning there was a lot of CGI in it, so they used a lot of their money within that. I think Dear Dave was one of the ones that failed. It basically got cut because it was just one that was written for the cheap. So that's why you only had the 4 of them and the story in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it basically it shows.
Yeah.
I think when I first saw it, it wasn't my favourite because I thought it was a bit silly. But in a rewatch, I thought it just got sillier because the toilet roll part meant nothing. It was
like they started with a punchline and tried to work backwards from there, and they just kind of didn't even seem to work back that far. They just, Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, the contrivance with the bits and pieces. Even you knew as soon as the toilet roll and the cat couldn't find toilet rolls and he finds the envelope, you knew obviously that's the envelope they're all looking for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And why would the cat actually cart it back in? Because the cat's not one that cares, so he would just leave it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be sitting reading it and thinking, oh, I better give this to Lister. He would just leave it. It's the contrivance part of it, I just thought, thingy, because the cat has already been established. Even in this season, it doesn't care. It's all about him.
Yeah.
Does not cook, does not clean, does have sex with anything, as it says. But it's that whole aspect of it. Yeah, he brings him the envelope because it's got his name on it.
I did find it quite amusing the fact that Lister was kind of had to deal with that bunny boiler of a vending machine.
Yes, that was funny. That was probably the funniest part, where he's just chatting away to the vending machines. He's just, because they've got their artificial intelligence, he's just chatting to them rather than just going up going, chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Thanks. In a way, he's chatting to them, but they've got the personality that one becomes a bunny boiler and the other one, oh, you don't. It's
like, are you hitting on me? He was hitting on me. He touched my logo.
Exactly. One basically was just anything you do, it was a sexual deviance, and the other one was anything you say, you're coming on to me. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's funny to an extent, as long as they don't overplay it, which I think occasionally they did do, overplayed it, but whereas I could see the other Rimmer coming in, it doesn't matter if he could see it's not true or not. He's quite happy because it puts Lister in a bad light. But Crichton coming in and yes, sir, and all that, it just didn't seem true to that, because
you're right. Because
he knows all the devices, knows all of them by name, even knows individual cutlery by name and stuff like that. The what did they call them? The junkie, the things in the wheels, and the bit where Pre was trying to scutter them out. So he knew them all by name, yet it's almost like he didn't understand why this one was saying it without. He must have known the type of personality each of the vending machines.
Well, I mean, you mean like, because there's that bit at the end where Lister kind of he's moving the vending machine so that she can see the end of the corridor around the corner, and then he kind of he cocks it up and she falls, and he's trying to lift her up, but it looks like when Rimmer sees it, looks like he's bonking it, but like that was plausible at first, but then like the fact he keeps on doing it unawares and he doesn't manage to get her up, that seemed a bit. Yeah.
Do you know the part it got me with that? That joke would have worked if it was slightly broader, where he's underneath it, trying to lift it up, and he's just doing that as he's trying to lift it, but the weight keeps going down.
Yeah.
Whereas he's lying on top of it, trying to pull it. That part did not work for me.
No.
Whereas I thought the same joke where he's just trying to lift it, where he's just lifting it up and he's back straightening it, but the weight is pulling him back down. He kept doing that, trying to lift it up because she's constantly moaning. Would have worked. But him lying on top, trying to pull it up, to me, didn't work.
No.
But the joke would have worked because if you just did it slightly, because it would have, if from the back, with him just going like that, would have been funnier.
Do you feel like it's like they were going back for the polymorph gag with the strinking pants?
Yes, that's exactly what I must admit. Remember I was saying about how things seemed to go back, but when they brought it forward, it seemed to twist it.
Yeah.
And I think him lying on top, trying to lift it up, failed. Whereas I think if they'd gone with the polymorph one, whereas him trying to lift it up, would have actually been more in line, because when the cat came in, or Lister came in, Rimmer came in, and there's Crichton on his knees between his legs, trying to pull his pants, and he's jumping about, because the visuals there were funnier, whereas the visuals for Lister and the vending machine, because he was lying on top, trying to pull up,
not so much, is it?
Not as funny, but I think if he'd actually come in from a different edge where he's trying to lift it up, so his legs are bending and straight, and his back was bending, that would have been a funnier way, and it would have brought the humour back the same as that scene did. But I think they would have, same again, they would probably have dragged that on a wee bit too long again if they'd done it slightly. But then again, we always know the better things we'd have done for it, but it's hindsight, isn't it?
Well, the other bit was Kat, when Kat's kind of trying to talk Lister out of thinking about, what was her name again? The ex-girlfriend who was pregnant.
Oh, Tracy Treaser? No, it was Sharon something.
Was it Hannah Summers or something? Just a minute.
It does sound right. Let's see. I'm just actually getting that one up. Dear Dave. That's the problem. They don't actually always mention who it's meant to be. He finds a letter. His father. It just doesn't actually say.
No, because she wasn't. Listen, no, it doesn't say. No.
I can't see any name on it. Right, guys in the chat, what was Lister's girlfriend's name, the one who wrote the letter? Somebody needs to tell us. So they do.
I wonder if FanWiki's got it. Oh, wait, just a minute, Red. I might have it.
I'm just one of those things, just try to actually find it.
But the thing is, what I was trying to... Hayley Summers. I found it. It's on the
What's her name?
Hayley Summers.
Hayley Summers.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, though, because Rimmer wanted some dirt on Lister that would kind of show him because he wants to get a signal, and he wants to he can't get a signal. He tries to get on, so he tries to kind of say, I've been busy caring for
him with traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, so he wants to get some. So he wants to get some sign of Lister being insane, and so it does feel like, did Rimmer put Cat up to it when he goes to Cat, when Cat goes to him and kind of puts the image in his head of Hayley Summers cheating on him with that the guy, the banker?
But I think would he have put Cat up to it? I think he would have just steered Cat, because how many times has the Cat talked about things?
Yeah,
he did it to Rimmer in the past. Yeah. He's done it to every one of them in the past, telling them how they're lucky they don't need to think about it by explaining it in great details. So yes, I can imagine Rimmer actually just saying to him, "Go and talk to him. Known fine well, that's all you needed to say
Well,
for the
classic,
cat to do that.
the classic one of that was probably in Duck Soup when Lisa's got claustrophobia and they're winning together, and like Cat's like, "Boy, is it cramped in here?
Exactly.
Me around." You know?
Yeah, that type of thing. So he did it with Rimmer with was it his mum?
Oh,
I'm sure there was one in the past about how his mum didn't like him and he couldn't put up with it. If it was me, I would. And it was something like that. It was the cat again, just giving a thing with White, how he couldn't survive knowing this, and he just kept going on and on and on.
No, do you know what I think it was? It was the Better Than Life after they get the news of Rimmer's dead. When Cat's been told about Rimmer's dead dying, and like basically Rimmer's moping in bed, and like he's trying to console him. He's like, "Listen, about your father.
One.
Sure, it's bad for him, but on the other hand, it's party time for all the little worms." And then like Lacey's listener is like, "There's just no consoling him."
Yeah, that's the one that I think it was, and it is. The cat has done it numerous times. So yes, even him, Rimmer turning on to saying, going in and calm him and console him. That's all you need to do. Didn't need to actually convince him to go and do it. You'd have just said, "Go in and console him." Knowing fine well, the cat would just do that because he's done it in the past. So yes, I could see Rimmer actually steering the cat to make it worse for Lister. But I must admit, there was good bits in Dear Dave, but there was one or two bits that took me out of the story. So it's not my least favourite. I think it's better than Fathers and Sons, but not as good as Entangled.
Well, the thing is, it's like it's got the least inconsistencies this season, but that's only because it doesn't really do much as a story.
That's true. Which is unfortunately, but yes, that's true. It's the storytelling is a bit tighter as well, and I think it's because they've had to write this on the cheap, and they had to keep it very tight because obviously there was the financial issues, so they had to be very tight with it. So I think when they were doing it, probably they didn't have the same time maybe the shooting schedule, so they had to make sure it was all done as tight as possible. So there was no maybe 4 variations of similar scenes and they pick the one that actually suits better. It was a case of this is the way we're going down with that. Because, you know, there's been times in the past where they've shot things and shot it from a different side or certain words different to see how the two of them sound. Whereas I think they've not had the budget to do that. So it's been more strict. So I think it was a bit tighter for that. But I think this takes us to me, in my opinion, one of the best in this season, the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is the end, but it's the beginning. Which is the end, but it's the beginning. I know. It's typical Red Dwarf. Do you see when I first saw this title, I thought, no more Red Dwarf. That's exactly what I thought, no more Red Dwarf.
So it was full circle to the,
because the very beginning of Red Dwarf started with the end.
Yeah.
So when I first saw this, before I knew there was going to be another season, I thought, this is it. I wonder what happens, because I saw the title. And because I saw the title, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to go one or two ways. Yeah. Well, one or three ways, actually. They were either going to get back to Earth, which I saw was unlikely. They were either going to find Kachansky, which I assume again because they've already tried that with Back in the Red with Kachansky, or it was going to end up like the previous ones where it explodes and you do not know. Like they did with the one with the... I'm trying to remember. I keep on forgetting the final episode name. The one where the Out of time.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was going to end up like Out of Time. Explosion, and you just didn't know because they thought Out of Time was going to be their last one. So that's why they left it so ambiguous. You didn't know what happened. You saw the explosion, so you can make your own mind up what happened.
Yeah.
Then they obviously got the more seasons, but I thought they were going to do that because I think that's how they wanted to leave it. If they got to the end, that it was going to be a thing that they could pick up later if they got a chance, but it would have been a good finish if it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I thought when I saw the beginning title.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, even though it didn't end up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some good bits in it. I loved Hoagie. Do you know Hoagie was actually meant to be? Do you know they had written Hoagie for? Oh, let's see. This was 2012. This season, wasn't it?
Yep.
Right. 10 years previously, because they wanted it for the movie that they were planning in 2000.
Oh.
Hoagie was in the movie script, and they liked him that much they wanted to use him, so they kept him.
Okay.
And this is where he ended up.
Ah. Okay.
I must admit, I loved Hoagie. Hoagie the Rogie. I just thought Richard O'Callaghan basically just played him so well.
Again, I feel like some of his scenes carried on the gag carried on a bit long.
Bits and pieces, yes. And I think that's synonymous with this season. I think they did that along the line. Last one in the season 8 as well. I felt as if they just didn't know when to stop it. Even a second or two earlier, it would have been a perfect, but they kept it on that wee teeny bit. And I think they had the same issue here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think their problem is. It's just a case of cutting that joke just a wee bit shorter, just to actually make it funny rather than have it fun and tailing off.
You know, my favorite joke in this is probably the flashback to Rimmer's childhood when there's that girl sitting next to him and she seems to kind of pity him, and like she seems like you get the sense he probably was the best chance he would have had with her.
Yes.
And she was, the fact that she was kind of, she wrote, "You're a guinea pig," and you just kind of completely insulted, like you're a baboon.
You're a baboon, 4 eyes. But do you know the thing is, to see the girl, did she not remind you of Professor Edgington?
A little bit.
Her features. Initially, see when I thought it, I actually says, I didn't think it was the same person because I knew there was different. But I thought, I wonder if these two are related. They obviously weren't. Now, sometimes you get maybe a couple of brothers who are actors that do. Or I thought it was this one. It was either sisters or cousins or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's like the Karen Gillian and the girl who played her as she was younger was her cousin.
Yeah.
And it's the same as you've got the McGann brothers. You've got a few. You've got the Estevez and Sheen, that type of thing. They're related or cousins or whatever. It's because they've got similar features, and that's what I thought this girl was, a cousin to that. And I thought it was harking back to that's why Edgington fell for him, because or he fell for her because of a later scene in this one. But then he actually writes the note, and it basically it ruined it. Yeah, baboon, 4 eyes. I just thought that was funny. But I thought that's where they were going to go with that. But that's why he'd fallen for Edgington so quickly, because that girl he reminded of that girl until I realised they'd gone the opposite way and actually insulted her.
The actress' name was Joanne Gale. The character was Wendy.
Yes. But it's no relation to Sydney Stevenson.
No.
I just checked to see if there was any, but there was no I could see. But it's just one of those things. I just thought they were, and I thought they were using the look. That's why he fell for Edgington. But obviously, the very first time I saw it, I thought, oh, that's who she reminds me of. And I wonder if that's why he fell in love so much. And no, Wendy, you didn't hear your name, but yes, Wendy, you heard your name. What did they say? We were talking about you, not to you. Yes, we were talking about Rimmer's ex. It could have been, not that it was, but it could have been.
Yeah. You blew it big time.
Yes, you could have had a Wendy Rimmer.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I like this for a number of things.
Yeah.
It gave Rimmer a bit of a redemption arc because of who his father turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
The Hoagie the Rogie, I just loved that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the simulants. Take my sword and clean it and write me a note. You didn't mean I was to disembowel myself? No. You just seemed a bit, I mean, in the big grin, the smile after watching them doing it, and just tell them, that's not what I meant at all.
Mm-hmm.
Dominator was worth.
Yeah.
But I thought the Dominator was really good. Just that evil grin where he basically just watched them disembowel himself and say, have it clean. No, that's all I meant. I didn't mean the rest. You just took it to yourself. I thought it was quite interesting. and that they made this a bit more entertaining for it.
Yeah.
And did you not think when they were fighting the Dominator's battleship, it harked back to was it Legion? Now listen here, we're going to say this once and once only. We surrender. That remember he gave the whole surrender speech. Sorry. I thought they were harking back to that, but obviously they were playing on it again.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of the few actually didn't take it and ruin it. I think they went a wee bit too long with constantly going on, and then I'm sitting writing in the note. I thought just took it a wee bit too long. But the idea of the joke was quite good. He was just doing that just so they would fire because they thought they were helpless and it would be funny destroying somebody who's surrendered.
Yeah.
But they gone on with the letter writing, I thought just took it a wee bit too much. And then I thought they brought it back when they realised which I thought was silly, but I thought they brought it back is when the missiles went through and it was coming towards them and he says, under article, we want to surrender. And pardon? Yeah. Whereas you're sitting there thinking, well, it was actually use it fire, but if anybody can make it self-destruct, it would be use.
Mm-hmm.
So why he was asking them for surrender is if they could stop the missiles.
Yeah.
So there was a nice wee punchline, but that aspect of it, I just thought, took me out of it again. But that's just me.
The bit where Kat kind of susses what's holding Rimmer back was a bit odd.
Yeah, Kat was too smart.
I thought they were maybe going to do instead. I thought maybe like he was going to play with the string and he was going to do something really stupid with it. And he was going to accidentally activate the hologram, and that's how Rim would find out.
But even that string part, when you first got that joke way back at the beginning, it was okay, but it would have been better if the cat had come in, hiding it behind his back. So I need to hide this somewhere. This is my favourite game, and that Crichton's looking for it. And then he would have hidden it somewhere. I thought that would have been a better bit. Him coming in, just because of the way the cat had grown.
Mm-hmm.
It was thinking, yes, but I thought he was when they came in with it. I thought he was going to be hiding it. Don't tell Crichton I'm hiding this in here, type thing. And yes, and then knocking something that sets off the hologram, rather than him being the smart one. I have these feelings about these things.
Yeah.
Well, you've never shown any feelings about anything in the past.
Yeah, like I mean, all he had to say about Rimmer's dad was, "I prefer chicken."
Yeah, exactly. Rimmer's dad dies. I prefer chicken. Yeah. But it's that type of thing. So having him being, yes, the fact that in the past a couple of times he said things and they're saying, "You're going to do one of my plans twice in one lifetime. This is great."
Yeah.
Yeah. There's him being the intelligent one and talking him round. It didn't work.
No.
It would have been better Lister saying that.
Yeah.
So it would have, because he's got to know him a bit better. Yes, the cat could got to know him, but the cat doesn't care. And we've established the cat doesn't care. The cat's there as comic relief because he is funny and steals the scenes by scene.
Do you think maybe you think it would have been better if it was something along the lines of Rimmer was contemplating playing the message, and Kat was like, "Well, I never knew my father. I never cared. Kind of, I'm rootless, kind of thing." And maybe the point of contrast would have been kind of, "Well, Kat doesn't care. Why do I care?" Kind of, or maybe Kat had been, "Well, why do you care so much?"
But see, I think it would have actually worked if the cat had said something like that. Because if the cat had come in and says, "Well, look at me, my dad was an imbecile because he was the mum the imbecile and the dad the cripple." Yeah. Remember, he was the thing. So I think it was the dad who ate his feet, so the cripple. Yeah. But he could have turned around and says, "I didn't know my parents. One of them was an imbecile, and that's why I'm turned out thingy because I didn't know them. Yeah. I basically doing my own way," and then he tipped it on, and he turned around. He's the son of an imbecile.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Well, if Cat can do it, I can do it because the cat said the reason I'm so awesome is because I didn't listen to them because they were an imbecile and I just made my own way for me. So it would have given him the confidence to do things for him.
Do you think it was a kind of a callback to the bit in the VR room in the plasticine VR characters in Back in the Red? Because like the
11X.
Yeah.
He's smarter when he's thinking. Yeah, so the 11X, and then it was the power source.
Yeah. Yes. But like that made sense because it was a artificial cat.
Yes. And I think it would have made sense just for the simple fact, as you said, he could have said something like, "I didn't know my parents. My parents were I got told they were an imbecile and a cripple, and I basically didn't know them. I brought myself up, and I just look at me. I'm not an imbecile." Even if it's something funny, and then he turns around and he hits it and it switches on at the part of the message where it says, "I'm not your father." But see, do you know what would have been funny? If it did a more Darth Vader type. "No, Rimmer, I am not your father." The opposite. And she did that because he's very stern and all that. But I think if they'd actually gone down the route of actually parodying the Darth Vader's one, "Did your mother ever tell you what happened to your or even somebody telling him, maybe even you see the farmer, or "Did your mum, I am your father." That would have been funnier. "It's not from my father, it's from the gardener."
Yeah.
"Did your mum ever tell you what happened to your father?" "No." "Well, no, Arnold, I am your father." I mean, playing on the Darth Vader one would have been funnier if they had Dongo or Derek send the message to tell him that your dad's found out that I'm your father. So, and they giving it as the Darth Vader speech. Just with a wee twist it. I thought that would have been funnier because they did so many times. They did like the Blade Runner in season 9. They've done bits and pieces of other shows. You can see them here and there. Patrick Troughton thought it was a rip-off of Star Trek in one episode. That was the episode with the Data one with the Life in a Day. It was basically they were in a prison. It was all in the mind. It was the VR one. It was the Gunman of the Apocalypse. Yeah. He thought it was very like the one with Data. Yes, Fistful of Data. So basically, it was a case of they've done parts that were parodies or homage to other ones. So that part about not being your father, there was the perfect one to do. No, Arnold, I am your father, and having the gardener.
Yeah.
No, Arnold, I am your father. Or or something stupid along that line. To me, that would have been funnier. But they missed such a cliched parody. And I think it would have been slightly funnier for that. But that's just because as soon as I saw it, that's where I thought they were going to go the very first time I saw it.
Yeah.
Because I know they did bits and pieces parodies here and there. I thought they were going to... Are they doing a Star Wars parody bit where, "No, I am your father." But it's obviously, "No, I'm not your father." So go away and do this. And it basically had nothing... Apart from the fact that it was to do with fathers, there was no resemblance between the two speeches at all. So they couldn't even actually even be a side-by-side, just say, well, if he'd said that instead of that, which takes it in a different... It just didn't work. It's not... But I could only hope. But there you go. Wishful thinking.
I mean, I just looked on the Wikipedia. Apparently, this is supposed to be originally they were going to do a two-parter, and it was going to Kochanski was going to return. Like in previous streams, like the stream you did on Series 8, I remember saying like the best seasons feel like they were Destiny, and this at a certain point, like up to Series 6, it felt like it was all the way the show had gone was kind of Destiny. It was like that was how it was supposed to be.
Yes.
And this season, as you say, it feels like they had bigger ambitions in mind. There were episodes they wanted to do, but they couldn't do.
The same as what happened in season 8.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to finish it off with, not necessarily with the ship destroying because of the mutagen. They were going to end up back in Earth, and there was going to be an accident that Hollister had destroyed parts of Earth, and then something happens, then Ace comes in and sorts it, and all those bits and pieces. That's what they wanted to do, but they ran out of money, so they had to cut it way down. And this one, I think it's the same idea. The lack of money actually made them curtail what they had planned to what they could get away with.
Mm-hmm.
Which is unfortunate, because it would have been more interesting to see how they wanted it to do. But it's the same again. They get the budget, and then they blow the budget on things that they didn't really need.
Mm-hmm.
Because seeing all those explosions and the Dominator ships and stuff like that, you could have got away with a lot less of that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that was another joke that went on too long when the skull got when the hole in the bedroom got fractured, and Crichton was coming in and was like, "Shall I not do the cleaning then?" And I thought, well, this scene's carrying on too long.
Yes, and then he came back in and kind of reorganise it. What is that? The sarcasm and stuff like that. And I thought, yes, but you hit on it over and over. Said, yes. You could clean up that hole. That's all you need just now.
It's like it carried on the joke too long, and it kind of undermined the jeopardy at the same time. That's what annoyed me.
Well, you look at the one a similar one. Remember the one where they're going down the corridor? The door get blown out, and they're somersaulting and holding on to each other as they're going down the corridor. It wasn't the duck soup. It's very similar to the duck soup because they were in the water, but this is the one where see, try to remember it.
Was it at the end of Legion when the star drive crashes through the?
It's exactly at the end of Legion. And you see them, and they're basically tumbling down, and they're holding on to each other to try and stay, and that's how it ended. So there was jeopardy there. You knew they were going to get out of it, but there was the jeopardy there. Yeah. But with this one, no, I've seen more suspense in Space 1999. Where the guys come in and actually suddenly come in with a spacesuit, hold something against it, and just spray it, and that's it solved. Yeah, you saw these guys. You knew you've seen it the week before. You know what's going to happen. There's a crack, and there's this, and then you know this guy's going to come in, and go boop, and solve it. Yeah, that was more suspenseful in Red Dwarfs. What they were trying to be suspenseful of, because you didn't know if one of them was going to get dragged out like Hoagie.
But you know what that's a sign of, don't you? You know that's a sign of the split's still affecting the show. Like, Rob Grant isn't there to curb Doug Naylor's, kind of to get him to refine it.
Yeah, and that's what we have said since season 6. That some of the things just go too long, whereas they used to be able to go, no, it needs to stop here, or that's a wee bit too long. Do that. It's the same as I was watching some of the extras from season 1.
Yeah.
And you can see what they planned to do, but they cut them because they were too creepy or embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because the idea was good, but once they actually started filming them, they realised, oh no, that either makes Lister look creepy, or it makes Kochanski look needy.
What was cut out, by the way?
It was the drive room. See the drive room bit where he comes in and says, "Where's the captain officer over there?" There was a lot more flirting.
Okay.
and the flirting was cut because it was classed as too embarrassing and cringy.
Okay.
Because I think Lister is actually trying to chat her up, so he's coming across as a bit too creepy because he's not taking no for an answer, and she's laughed and joking with him, and it just looked as if she's too needy because there's this guy paying her attention, and that's not what they wanted to do, so they cut it out because the cast and the two of them decided, nah, it puts a different spin on their relationship. Well, and it's too cringy and embarrassing for the two of them, so no.
Well, wouldn't that make sense that like maybe he knew that she responded well to his flirtation, so he knew he could say something to her that other women might have kind of back off there, but she was kind of, he knew she kind of got it. She knew she got him or something.
See, to an extent, yes, but I think the way they cut it down, where she can still have a wee laugh and a joke and a flirt with him without it being overly long and creepy.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's what they've done. They've just cut it down so it gives you enough that she smiles and laughs at his jokes.
See, when you said creepy, I thought you meant, because I have seen one deleted scene where they're dealing with the canisters of the dead. They're basically sending them off into space, and Rimmer mentioned something about having come onto a woman, one of the dead crewmen, and it sounded like whoa, that doesn't sound like Rimmer. Rimmer's usually respectful. He's not that. And the way it was described, it sounded like he'd done something a bit creepy.
I hit her with the and then ran away.
Yeah.
But there was also the scene they cut out with the chair with Kachansky and Lister, where he's chatting her up and he's moving the chair to the button and it's making, and she's and that's what they thought was just too embarrassing for Kachansky's character, because she just seemed to be too needy because of the fake laugh, and it's a wee bit too creepy because he's going over and he does it all the time, makes her chair go down. It's almost like a case of, really, you still do that? And it's
you know what? I have actually read in my edition of the Infinity Workcoms Curve for Drivers, and it's a double volume I've got. It's got both of them, and it's got the original script, and I think that bit is in there. Because when you first, I thought, was that in the book? It's like, no, it was in the script that was in the book. Because in the book, they've split up, so they don't even have that interaction. You just kind of watches a.
In the book, they had a relationship for 3 weeks, one day.
Yeah, and then the scene in which in the TV show he has that scene where he talks to her and then he talks to the Hollister. In this, he kind of just sees her kind of just completely cold to him, working away, and he's just kind of, how can she be over me? And so they don't even have an interaction. He just kind of,
and so I think England's just scored a goal because I heard my wife swearing in the background.
I see.
Earlier on, I heard her cheering. The other time, I just heard her swearing. I don't know. I'm just guessing, so don't spoil. Don't blame me for telling anybody the score. I'm just saying I heard her screaming earlier and I heard her swearing there. So that could mean one each. It could mean somebody's just missed a goal. It could mean anything. So don't assume that I've just told you the score, please.
My thing is, I think I'm getting what you mean now, because like as written, maybe that could work if there was a good chemistry between the actors, but because it came off a bit forced, it felt wrong. It felt off. So
So if you look at the extras in season 1, because I've got I dug out my old video, and I've got the Smeg Ups, and I've got Smeg Ups and a video from Thingy. So I had ripped them. So basically, I had a CD with the ones that I ripped. My dad used to have one of these things that converted videos to DVDs, and so he's converted it for me, and it had just the extras on it, and it was only that wee bit, and it was just, he comes round and he's see in the first show, it's a case of, where's the captain? It's over there, and she's laughing and joking, having a smile with him. He goes, in the same place, then he goes over. Whereas in this one, it's, where's the captain's office? It's over there where it's always been. And they have a laugh, a joke, and then he comes round the back of her chair and he's going, oh, it's this button, and the chair goes down. She goes, and it's almost like a fake laugh. And that's the bit where they thought, that makes her look needy because it's a fake. Look at me, aren't you funny? And there's another swearing, shouting balls. God knows what's happening with that football. I need to shut my door so I don't hear it. I'm glad I've got these on. Because if I'm just worried anybody else can hear it through my mic.
Can hear some of it, yeah.
My wife's a big football fan, so she is. I don't watch any sports, but she loves it. So basically, we've got the two things round the wrong way. I watch all the TV shows and stuff like that, and she watches all the sports.
I occasionally watch the snooker with my neighbour downstairs.
See, I used to watch the snooker thing, but it's the same again. The only one I used to watch and I used to follow was Ice Dance. I was a big Torval and Dean fan in my youth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I used to do. And when Dolly says she can hear a tiny bit only.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my wife shouting and bawling at the TV, by the way, Wendy. So there's something's happening in the football. So I don't know if they're winning or losing.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
So I do apologise anybody out there for the bad language if they can hear it. There you go, Wendology. People the flats opposite are shouting too. Mm-hmm. So something big must have happened. It's either they've gone on to extra time or something. I don't know. Don't follow the stuff. So as I said, I don't care who wins or loses. Makes no difference to me.
Mm-hmm.
As my dad used to say, he only supports two football teams, Scotland and whoever's playing England. But I don't follow that. my dad, that's actually not true. My dad was he was a big Italy fan, so he was. But he did his joke was always only follows two football teams, Scotland and whoever's playing England. That was his big dad joke every time they were on. The football was on. But that's in the past. But yes, let's go back to the beginning of the end of the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I did enjoy this one, and I would have loved to have seen a two-parter. So I would have.
Yeah. I suppose it was kind of. I mean, they did the kind of the after credits kind of gag with the return of what was his name again? Your favorite
Hoagie
villain, Hoagie. I don't know if I would
Hoagie the Rogie.
See, I don't know if I would have kept that in. I would have maybe just kind of had him just disappear at the beginning, maybe not come back. I don't know.
No, see, I think they needed him to come back because I think there's programs where a character comes in and then to give them the gun to solve it, and then you never see them again. And I think sometimes that fails, even if they come in and it's just a case of he might come in and steal the gun and go, "You shot my brother," and then end it there on the joke.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like things like that, because if you got a character to come in just so you can get the gun, so you can solve what's going to happen with the simulants at the end, then that's like somebody's just giving you a MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they brought Hoagie in to give the MacGuffin, as in the gun that could allow the missiles to pass through. But if they just dropped him and never mentioned him again, then they only put him in there for the MacGuffin. Bringing him in, even if it's at the end for something silly, at least they gave him a round, even if it's a case of to steal his gun back. I justify because you saw him Back to Earth when they were saying the holly hop, the paddles, they're all in Red Dwarf, Red Dwarf, Red Dwarf. And this one, it gave him the closed the loop that you saw him at the end, so he's got his gun back. So if they never use it again, it's because Hoagie's got it back. So they brought him in, even if it's just to take the MacGuffin away again. That's why I like that part of it, because it actually Disney just go, they brought him in only to give them the MacGuffin and they forgot about. At least they remembered enough just to bring him back at the end, just to tie it up.
Yeah, true.
I know. I sometimes I overthink. Sometimes I. But when did you catch what we were saying earlier about Holly Hop Drive? Instead of the rejuvenating machine, our idea was they had the rejuvenating machine and it was in the store next to the Holly Hop Drive, and something happened and the two of them, the Holly Hop Drive got infused. So it didn't just move you in space, it moved you in time as well, and then they could have used that rather than the rejuvenating, which not only gave them time travel, but space travel.
Yeah.
Considering in the past, they had mentioned that with the dimension, the time travel machine, that we are now in 1421. Yeah, but we're still in deep space. It's only a time travel machine, not a time and space travel machine.
Yeah.
So they did mention that in the past, whereas this gave them a time travel machine. But for some reason, it gave them a space travel machine as well. So I would have preferred if it was the Holly Hop and the Rejuvenator, and some hundreds of years, depends how long they were in stasis, it was sitting next to something else, which a radiation or something that caused it to leak or something, or a bit of damage, it hit it and the radiation leaked into Holly Hop. But they don't pay us enough to actually share our ideas, but we'll share our ideas anyway. That's a good thing. They give us good stories, and the bits that fail, we can actually just add to them and make our own.
Yeah.
Headcanon's superb for that.
Yeah. I mean,
but all in all, what do you think of the full season 10 in comparison? We obviously know the best seasons were the first 5. The first 3 definitely. The first 5 were the golden age.
First 6, I'd say.
The 6, I did like 6, but I think that's when you started to see the cracks, and I think it's because Rob was getting fed up with it.
They were still together, but yeah.
They were still together, but I think you could see the cracks starting to form because I think Rob was getting a bit fed up with it. So as the golden age, that's, I suppose, was the silver age, I would say. It's the same as comics. So you had the first 5, which were the best. Season 6 was just slightly off kilter. That's all. Okay. It's not a case of it was bad in any way compared to 7, 8, 9, or 10. I think it was where you've got your plateau, and that's when it's just starting to slide. So it's still up there. It's just that's when you can feel it start to go. Then 6, when they split, and then that's when you had the stories which are starting to come all the way down till you hit 8 and 9.
Well, you hit Duck Soup.
Duck Soup. Duck Soup is very like Dear Dave. It's just a filler episode because we've ran out of money. And that's Duck Soup and Dear Dave are that's exactly what they were. They were episodes that were written because they had no money. Which is crazy considering how many times in the first 3 seasons where they had the money, but they did better stories, and it was only just the 4 of them: Holly, Lister, Rimmer, and the cat. And they weren't outside the ship. There wasn't anything else added in, but they had the money, but they still managed to do a better story. Whereas these ones, they've not got the money, so they write a story which you can see is a cheap story.
Well, do you think maybe they felt they'd gone so far forward they couldn't go back almost? But they knew the audience expected at least something like the format of series 3 or 4 or 5.
Yes,
I
think the fact is, it shows the quality of the writing. The two of them together could do so much more with just the 4 characters in the ship. Whereas here, you've got the 4 characters in the ship, and it's only one of them writing, and they can't make it as tight. So the 2 of them are similar setups, but I think it shows a difference in the team up, where Grant and Naylor could bring in a tight, well-constructed story with just the 4 of them in the ship.
Yeah.
Doug couldn't actually tie it up as well. I mean, Christ almighty, if somebody actually handed me a piece of paper and says, write something, I'd be lucky if I could actually get a crane drawn out of it. Even actually after watching all the Red Dwarf, could I actually write a story for them? No. That's why I'm actually just all mouth and on YouTube.
I think for me, it still feels like they're in the experimental rehearsal stage. I mean, it's like I feel like they've not quite got the magic back yet. But, I mean,
they're learning. It's a learning curve, and you can see they're still trying it. And I think that's what we're wanting going forward. Them tightening it up a bit.
Yeah, I have to say, I didn't entirely love this series.
I must admit, I quite agree. Initially, I enjoyed this series. I cannot deny it. The first time I watched it, I enjoyed it. I loved Lemmings.
Mm-hmm.
Entangled was an okay one for me. Whereas on the rewatch, there was less enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
Lemmings dropped from being my favourite, one of my top 10 all-time favourites, to being an okay one for this season. Whereas Entangled actually went up a bit because I thought Entangled was a mediocre one, whereas rewatching it, the second part of it made it better.
I think you've hit the nail on the head a bit there. It's a bit of a one-trick viewing season, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I think you hit the nail on the head as well when you were saying the first half of each of these episodes, it's almost like two parts. The first half was the setup, which was too much, whereas the payoff was good, but because the setup was too slow and laborious until they got to the punchline, like the Jesus one where they're setting up the thing and do all that. As soon as Jesus came in, it got better. Entangled, as soon as they get to the space station, it's better. As soon as it's got the groinal bomb, it's better. But all the bits leading up to it are just either exposition or just they're not very well thought through. So they've got the idea what they want to do and the way they want to go, but try to get there. And once you've got there, but when they've got there, it's how to tie it up as well sometimes fails. But it's definitely the shows that I thought were really good failed because on rewatch you realise that there's too many things that are at the beginning drag it down. And then other ones where you see things at the end which you thought, actually lift it up because they're better story and they're better constructed. And I think that's what this one is. It's very a one-trick pony throughout. Each episode has got one thing that makes it Red Dwarf, but one thing in a half an hour episode is no great.
No, it's still kind of keeping the meter ticking, isn't it? It's not quite. Yeah. It's
not quite back to Earth.
No.
But it's definitely not quite Horseman or Apocalypse.
No.
I mean, so I think that's what it is. It's as you said, it's almost like I wouldn't say a reboot. I would say more of a interpretation of the first season because they're trying to keep them in the ship.
Yeah.
And trying as much that way, which is the first second season, they were morely in the ship. Very rarely they went out of the ship. Whereas this one, they seem to be trying to do that, but they do different scenes here and there, but it could be in the ship or it could be anywhere else because the ships don't look that much difference, except Trojan, where they had the ship. Because when they were in the station, the Eris station, it didn't make much difference because you only could see the lift and the corridor when they went in where the woman was, and that was it. Everything else was on the ship. So it seemed as if they were trying to reimagine how to do season one again.
Yeah.
A relaunch. That's probably the word that's probably better.
Comparing it to the seasons after, I think another thing, it felt like didn't feel like it quite had the full atmosphere. Whereas I feel like maybe they were going to get better at that in the next seasons. Yep,
it was a wee bit
patchy.
Yeah. Perfect word for it. Patchy.
Yeah.
Still Red Dwarf, but patchy Red Dwarf is better than no Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. it showed here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's basically it was starting to. You're sitting there thinking, it's great because it's Red Dwarf, but and it's that but it just kept going, but yeah. It's like the whining in Rimmer's ear. I can hear a whining. It's because you're talking.
Oh yeah,
It's basically
that didn't go anywhere, did it?
it went nowhere. I was still waiting for it. I was waiting for the punchline.
I thought it was going to be some kid that his programming was going wrong, and that somehow the new computer was going to help solve the problem of his, his deteriorating program.
Oh, I thought it was just it was going to be something silly. He could hear it, something that even Crichton couldn't hear.
Yeah,
because Crichton's always the one that's basically meant to be hearing everything, but he's hearing this, and it's something silly. It could be something in his room, just something that maybe he's just lying. It's going like one of those wee stupid boop boop, but it was rubbing against something. That's what he could hear because he'd seen it. But because he'd seen it, he hears it in his head. Nobody else can hear it because it's so quiet. But it's one of those things. It's like somebody, you hear a tune that you hate, but in your head you can't stop it going round and round and round. You're sitting there thinking, I hate this tune. Why am I constantly singing it in my head?
Oh, it's worse when you're kind of sick with vomiting. So then, like anything you do here does do the rings around your head.
Yes,
any melody. It's just
That's the thing. That's what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be something that was so insignificant, only he notices it, and it's because it annoys him. So even though he can't physically hear it, in his head, it's just going round and round and round, and that's what I thought they were going to lead to. That he's so paranoid that something simple like that can annoy him so much that he can hear it decks away, and it was just going to eventually tie down that he walks in and sees something that does that and goes, oh, but he didn't. It was nothing. It went zero, nowhere, which I thought was same again. It just seemed they had an idea and then dropped it.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a case of they wanted to use there you go, it's you talking again. Every time I hear this whining, it's because you're talking. I think they wanted just to use that joke. So the rest of it was unimportant once the joke was out of the way.
Yeah.
Well.
I think we've summed up the season, haven't we?
I think we have. So we've got 3 more seasons. I'm hoping Wendy and Darren's going to be on next week. Cool. Your return, hopefully you'll return. And Saturday, are you available on Saturday?
I might be, possibly.
I'll send you the link. If you can't make it, it's not an issue.
Okay, I'll do.
Okay, because myself, Wendy, Darren, Daniel, Mega Geek, and Jim the Viking.
Oh, well, Wendy says fantastic discussion, chaps. I think.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That was much appreciated of you, and thank you for sticking with us.
I always worry. Oh God, are we going to sound like a bunch of moaners about this season?
See, that's the one thing. That's why I like talking, because sometimes if I'm doing one on my own, I feel as if I'm going to go, ooh, because I just tell people about the things I noticed and how they made me annoyed. Well, I love Red Dwarf. Even bad Red Dwarf, I still enjoy watching it. I've got problems with it. It's like classic Doctor Who. I like classic Doctor Who. There's episodes I don't like, but it doesn't stop me enjoying Doctor Who. There's some episodes I would prefer. If they're on, I'll watch them, but I'll not go back to watch them from my collection. Well, it's that, and I think Red Dwarf is like that. There's some episodes that I might not watch again if I want to just sit and watch a bit of Red Dwarf. If I decide to watch the whole of Red Dwarf, I'll watch the lot. If something's on TV and I see it, sit down and watch it. But there's certain episodes I won't dig out my DVD just to watch that episode.
Oh, it's series 11. Can we watch this somewhere? I've
got it in DVD. That's the problem with me, Wendy. Wendy, what I'll do is I'll drop you a message. I think I know a place where you might be able to get a hold of it, but I'll need to keep that quiet just so I will. But I'll drop you a message and see if it works. Okay? No, it's not illegal. It's just a place that I might know where you can get it, but I don't want to put it out there just in case the person who might have told me about it didn't want me to.
Ooh.
I'm trying to be a good boy, Becky Miz, so wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I'm just going to see if it's on Prime, actually.
I see, that's an idea. I've got Prime as well.
It's on Prime. Wait a minute. It is, but it's you have to rent it. It's $1.89 an episode, or $9.99 for the whole season.
Is it? There we are. I'll speak to Wendy, see if there's something I could do about it, and see if it is. And I'll say no more.
I'll tell you what.
Season 12, and then we'll have everybody back for 13.
Tell you what, I'll give you the link to the Amazon Prime, where it's available on Amazon Prime, and if you want to pass it on to Wendy, if she can't, if it's a no look with the other one, then maybe. But I mean, if she, I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Not a problem. You send us the link, put it in the private.
I just have, yeah.
All right. I've just fired that up on mine because I've got Prime as well, and that way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's
just so I've got the link there, so when I close the stream down, I don't lose the link. So I've got it on mine. That's what I meant. I'll click on it just so I can get it.
It's not free on Prime though. That's the problem.
I know that's the problem, but I think I've got a way. But I'll let Wendy know.
Right. Since you're going to be discussing it with them, I'll probably say my piece on series 11 now. Watching series 10 again was a bit of a slog. Series 11, I can watch it in a row, and you know what? It's not a slog at all. It's actually back. The magic's back for me.
See, I think this was, as I said, remember I said about how they were getting better.
Yeah.
I think the season 11 is when it started on its incline. It was, because I think 8 and 9 were when it hit its lowest.
Yeah.
10 started going up, and that's what I'm saying, hoping it's go back up. But 11 for next week. And definitely looking forward to it. However, thank you very much again. Right. And if you can make it on Saturday for my Let's Talk Geeky, we're just talking general. Whatever comes up, we'll talk about that. No homework. I've decided no homework for my channel on Saturday. That way I can relax, because I've got so much on I can never catch up, because I've got to actually watch some of my war movies to catch up with the captain. He's basically doing a war week. And I've got a load of war movies and I watch them regularly, but at the moment I'm actually struggling because I'm busy at work. So I'm having to actually make sure no homework.
I know.
Anyway, thank you very much. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen in the chat. Darren, Windology, Cam, the Sergeant, and just double check. And who else was it? I said the Sergeant. I meant the Captain. I demoted him. I demoted the Captain, Cockney Spock. Don't tell him, everybody. They'll kill me.
Don't forget the Geek Inside as well.
The Geek Inside. That's the fourth. That's the one. Basically in the chat. And thank you all. Much appreciated for joining us. And until next week, remember, I'm not old. I'm classic. PG, maybe, and Sadako.
See you, Smegheads.
See you, Smegheads. Bye.